Hello and welcome back to 33 Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Michael Abney, and today I am joined by Dr. Julie, Doctor of Strategic Leadership, Leadership Development Coach, and Consultant. There's something to be said today about leadership, or we're going to be talking about it. That space where there's no one left to lead but yourself. Julie, welcome to the pod. I'm happy that you're here today.
Michael, thank you so much for having me. I'm grateful to be here.
Me too. I'm grateful just to be talking and having these conversations with everybody. This is such an exciting space. There's so many people that I talk to now more than ever that are now creating their own world, with everything that's happening with C-suite folks. And they're now on their own, and it's like they think it's an easy transition, but there's spaces inside of that's not so easy. And I think we're going to be talking about them today as we go through like part of your journey. But there's something about that I've been sitting with ever since I looked at your journey. We started talking. I started diving into today's show. That you've spent decades inside of organizations, leading teams, shaping people, being surrounded by structure. We all need structure. But now, for the first time, you've stepped out of that and you're alone in it by yourself. As many of us know what that feels like. Not alone in a negative way, but alone in a sense that there's no title, no team, no system reflecting back to you who you are as a leader anymore. And what strikes me, even with the real work that's happening, there's still a question underneath all of it. Is this real? Could this really be happening? So I want to start today I start with all of my guests. What transformation are you in the middle of right now?
Thanks, Michael. I really see myself even 30 years into my career in the midst of a significant career transformation, really. It has been a disorienting shift to go from, as you described, working 30 years for other people, other organizations, to now doing that for myself and working for myself. It's been a really significant change.
What part of your identity as a leader feels like it's dissolving the most as you're going through this transition?
It's been said that without followers, a leader is just a person out for a walk. And so I have had you.
That explains why most days I want to go for a long walk in the middle of the afternoon.
Right.
Yeah.
This has been a transformation where I've really had to look over my own shoulder and say, who am I walking with now? And what significance does that have for me? Is this a different kind of walk that I'm on now than I have been on before? So, for years, that leadership, that walk that I've been on has been with individual employees. It's been with teams. It's been with entire organizations. It's even been with senior leaders who were above me in the organization. And now I occupy every one of those levels. I am both the senior most person in the organization and the grunt at the bottom of the ladder, taking out the trash at the end of the day. And so it has been like going on a walk with myself over the last 9 months and really learning new parts of myself. And so, yeah, that has been a significant change.
What a beautiful way to articulate that. And at 9 months, you're at the beginning. So most people don't like sharing their experience at the beginning because we like to have it all figured out. So I want to acknowledge you for even stepping up and having that conversation because it's so important. I am seeing, I have the luxury of seeing and talking to people that are in the same space that you're in at the very beginning of it, that, had a job last week doing X, and then that thing's not there anymore, but they have so many friends that are acquaintances, networks that are in the same spot that are for either by force or by they can't stand it anymore, something inside of them that we're all in this pivotal switch. But there's so many things in like where you used to be that here's what I'm hearing. I want you to validate your own experience with it. Does that make sense? So I've been hearing that there's like, yes, I never knew that there were all of these things that were sort of unseen in the background that created so much value for what I was giving inside of that CEO or C suite space. You know, the branding, the background, the pipeline, all of those things that you don't even think about. And then they get out and then they're
Mhm.
surprised by these missing spaces and this feeling for the first time in a long time of being vulnerable and uncomfortable about the uncertainty that is now like when you have all of the things from the CEO to taking out the trash. It's all on you. What surprised you most about your journey so far? And without having teams and not having that invisible support
Yeah.
now. Yeah. What surprised you the most?
I have always been labeled internally, I think labeled myself and also been labeled this externally as independent, self-assured, I can stand on my own. I think what surprised me most was how much I realized I valued that external validation. And wasn't even and not so much valued like I needed to be puffed up, but how much of my identity was tied to the external validation. At the end of the day on Friday, somebody patting me on the back and saying, "Good job this week, Julie. Here's the value you brought. Here's the difference that you're making." And really needing to learn how to do that kind of inner reflection for myself and see the value and the impact that I'm making from this chair and not be dependent on others to
And
do
how
that.
did you do that? How do you like in the day to day
Yeah.
do that? Because that's the nail. That's the thing that people don't know what to do because they've never done it before.
Yeah.
So, how have you integrated ways to remind yourself of this? Or I don't want to put words in your mouth, but like, how are you navigating
Yeah.
what you just shared with us that makes sure that you pat yourself on the back and then that's, real because
Yeah.
we're so used to it from the outside, but ultimately it's so powerful to get it from us that it's that shift of like, we are the value, not the thing that we're producing as the value.
That's right.
Yeah. So share.
From day one, well, we'll call it week one, I have made a practice and have tried very hard to be consistent. I have consistently executed a process where I have a meeting with myself once a week. Really, probably many more times than that, but it's on my calendar. I have a weekly recap meeting with myself every Thursday afternoon at 4 o'clock. I'll have it today. And I go through a very structured reflection process on my week. And it starts with naming good news from work and from home. And I used to do this with a whole organization, with a whole team. And it was so profound for me in that environment that when I said, I am now working for myself, I'm going to continue this process, this practice, and do it for myself. But it begins with good news from work and from home. And then it goes forward to identify all of the headlines from my week. And then I go through and I have certain metrics and a scorecard that I keep. And I reflect back and make sure to update my scorecard. And then I check in on my big rocks for the quarter. I've got a very, specific set of objectives that I'm going at after quarter after quarter. And so am I on track or am I off track of those? And then I keep a list of running issues that I'm coming up, that I'm bumping up against, things I'm struggling with, things that maybe surprised me I wasn't anticipating. And I kind of work through with myself how I might solve those. That's part one. That's been incredibly helpful because week over week, I'm seeing by taking that intentional time to reflect on my week and I track it in a spreadsheet. So every single week I can look back and go, whoa, look at all of this work that I've done. And it's not just a list. I try to write like what the impact of that work has been. That's part one. Part two is Thursday night. My husband and I go out on a date every single week. We call it our Thursday date. And we go out and part of our conversation is reflecting back on my reflection. So he becomes an external thought partner with me.
Okay.
And so I've taken the time to do the deep reflection for myself. And then I have the opportunity to do external, if I, especially some of those issues, we spend some of that time working out those issues. And he becomes, again, this thought partner with me and reflecting back, giving me an external perspective as well. And I will say for me, that process has been critical to helping me fully step in and own this identity transformation that I'm in the midst of.
Wow. There's a lot going off in my head when you were saying that. Like, how do you, most people that I talk with, including myself, that's hard to commit to. So you have it in your calendar, so that's why it's
I
happening,
do.
right?
I
Yeah.
do.
Okay.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's how everything happens. We just get up to the point of it. It's easier to commit to the calendar than the things on the calendar. But like, I'm so trained to do these things in groups of,
Mhm.
reflecting. So when you were talking, I was like, who is she reflecting? So you have your husband. So this is
Mhm.
awesome.
Mhm.
So even if people listening to this don't have a supportive
Yeah,
partner or
that's
somebody in
right.
their life, they're still friends or people that we could create agreements with that says, hey, I need a little mirror, or maybe it's
That's
somebody in
exactly right.
your network. Cause I believe it's important for all of us to, even though we're solo, that we begin connecting and building
Yes.
community with each other in some way. That's why I do the podcast. And to I believe we can still be autonomous
Yes.
and sovereign. At the same time, we can support each other because I think you're pretty clear now about competition, right? It's it's like that's not a thing. So that's the barrier that stops most of us from connecting or
Mhm.
in a deeper
That's right.
ways because of that proprietary sort of thing. But I talked to a million marketers, a million brand strategists. Like that doesn't it's us that brings the flavor to whatever it is that we're doing. It brings it unique. That's why on the podcast, I can talk to all those people, but see, we still have because it's the human being. So
Right,
where has
right.
that showed up in your worlds? Do you have other
Yeah.
people around you like that are
Yes. In fact, what I'm finding is as I'm learning is where do I need to also be investing my energy? Certainly there's my client work. Certainly, right? I'm not a business without that. So a significant part of my energy. But the other part of my energy is investing in those relationships. It's building networks, or joining networks and building those relationships within them. And I'm aiming to do most of that as locally as possible because I really, really believe in that embodied relationship between people. I think we have this we live in this day where we can connect like we're doing right now. And there is such benefit to being able to disregard geographic constraints to be able to connect with people over time and space. And I would never want to lose that in-person opportunity to connect with people too. So I'm very much investing locally in building networks with other business owners, entrepreneurs, women-owned business spaces where we can build bonds around some unique experiences that we have as women starting businesses and running businesses as well. And to your point earlier about competition, for me, that has really come down to the difference between a generosity mindset and a scarcity mindset. And I'm going to anchor all day, every day toward a generosity mindset. I do. I truly believe that we are all both uniquely created and created to be in community with one another. And so that's just going to color how I see the world and how I approach this space. And it's been, again, an opportunity for me to put that core belief into action in this new role as a solopreneur.
that's that's a mouthful. Like that's so key and important because we're pushing against things that messages that we got growing up as entrepreneurs. We all have this little dream and it's going to go into this. And like, you know, even working for corporations, there's still
Hmm.
a part of us that is entrepreneurial inside of that. We just didn't, I never could work for them for very long. I could only work for them for like, because I was so clear about the value that I wanted to bring. Sometimes it even got in my own way,
Mhm.
until I started like looking, doing more reflective work like what you're doing. What has that impacted you, or what insights have come out of that? You taking on this practice to reflect every Thursday and look inward,
Mhm.
as opposed to, I'm sure you weren't doing that when you were 9 months ago, or like whenever you were in the throes of your other career. That was not part of it. How has that impacted you, and what has surprised you about that you've noticed since you started to do this about what you see patterns?
Well, what I've noticed is that our emotions are core to who we are, but they're pretty fickle. And so, I've heard it said that our feelings can ride, but they can't drive, right? Or another saying has been they're flags, but not always friends, right? And so what I've noticed about myself is that again, as I've kind of been going through this identity shift, is my emotions can go up and down whatever the given week, and who knows what might all be impacting that. But that practice that of structured reflection has been really grounding, pulling me back to reality. If I go, man, I feel like I've spent a week where I've just spun my wheels and haven't really done anything, and I've been here and there, and all these, I've been in and a mile wide. But then I spend that 30 or 45 minutes doing this structured reflection, and then I take the time to, verbalize it and discuss that with Mike that evening. And I'll go, oh wait, no, actually, you know what? I had a really solid week. So my feelings, for whatever reason, might not actually be reflecting reality. And so that's been really grounding in honoring the kind of volatility of the transition while still having a practice that keeps me grounded in.
And what is reality anymore, right? So there's this beautiful conversation that we're having about all of the things that you're doing and the switch, but there's also, we can't ignore the external forces of the change that's happening outside in the world, of which
Yeah.
we're all sharing, and it's evolving too, especially now with the world of business and things being affected by, tectonically being shifted that so far out of our control that I can't even process it. How do you manage that, or do you? How does that impact the emotions of the week? How
Yeah.
does that impact it's something I've got to move out of the way almost every day. I don't want to pretend like it's not happening, but I also don't want it to affect my ability to see a future,
Yeah.
because there are parts of the old world that I mean, I literally refer to it that way. We're so far past the point of no return. It's not even funny. And at the same time, I have a sense within myself, and when I connect with others, that nobody really has a sense of what to do next.
Hmm.
You know, it sort of mirrors that little space, that the micro space that I know I went through, I know you're going through
Yeah.
with our own businesses, but it's happening in that outside context too, where I do feel for, I don't believe in competition. I believe that what you said is true, that we all have a little micro piece of the larger puzzle. And when we come together, we can create a world that works for everybody. Who wants to be in business and have somebody lose? I
Yeah.
don't want to do that anymore, or play that game. So, like, you're building a new game. How does all of this fit with this happening on the outside? It's not something we're thinking about imagining one day. We're actually living it in real time. I think it's
Yeah.
extraordinary. And most of us are not talking about it. We're
Yeah. I really think that there's so much I think that we could pull out of the question that you're asking. And I mean, really, there's a lot of like, philosophical directions we could go there, but keeping it as practical as possible. And really, again, tying it back to the journey that I have been on 9 months ago when I, kind of sat down on day one. Okay, day one, I'm working for myself. What do I do? The first thing we do, I mean, I don't know what the first thing you did. I was like, go to the internet. And so you're investing in your website and you're investing in your LinkedIn presence and emailing people and all of this. And you think about the scale of the internet. And it's like, I am this tiny nanospeck in the whole worldwide web, right? What
Yeah.
so the whole internet. I am this tiny, insignificant nanospeck, and it is really easy to get super overwhelmed by that very quickly. And so it did not take me very long to realize I have circles of influence here, right? And this is a principle that again, I've drawn on for years. It's no different than working inside of a huge multinational organization with tens of thousands of employees. You're never going to know everybody, but you do have spheres of influence. And so, yes, my business exists. You will find me with an internet presence. Where you will not find me is spending all of my energy investing in that space anymore because where I am personally, I'm not going to be ignorant to it. I'm not going to say it doesn't matter, but where I matter most is in those spheres of influence that are closest to me. And so that's why I began really focusing my energy again on my client relationships and the places where I had the opportunity to invest in person. Now, sometimes I get on an airplane to be in person with people, and then that helps me to bring that circle a little bit closer so that when I engage technology that allows me to continue a client engagement over distance, the relationship is, a rung or two closer in terms of
Yeah.
those circles. So again, kind of the world is so big. There are so many challenges going on in our world right now. Like you said, can be disorienting. And so I think to kind of bring that parallel back and answer that question, it's really focusing on the relationships that are closest to us and where we can have that closer influence on both the people, the communities, and the businesses that we're engaging with.
It's so I love that you said that about I got trapped in that at the beginning too, that thinking that if I just did more work or made a better video or posted more or did something that I would connect with people. But it wasn't until I like I made a decision that I wanted to create something that I could be talking to the people that I wanted to be talking to, not just by the normal ways that they say we're supposed to connect.
That's right.
And it's like, wait a minute, I got a podcast.
Right.
I could do this. And that's how that started a couple of years ago. But the thing that turned out was my love for podcasting and my love for communication and digging around in these things. But the thing was, every day, well, it's not every day, it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday in my system that I have scheduled out that this is where I block. This is where I connect with the pulse of what's happening. And it's just people responding back to that one message, wanting to share the story, but it created a space for me to do that outside of these other platforms such that I don't even have a need to feel like it's hard for me to share as much as what's really happening in my world and put it out there because I'm too busy living the thing that what I'm creating and connecting to the people. So it's like the thing that I thought connected actually doesn't connect at all. Yeah, that was
Right.
the big
Yeah.
aha. But
Yeah.
I had to get past this fear. I've always been a producer, somebody in the background, somebody that creates designs of visions. It was uncomfortable at the beginning for me to be seen in a different way because I've been an entrepreneur my whole life of physical businesses, but the online world always fascinated me too, So like what you were saying about communities, I agree with you 1,000%. It is important for locally, but I will share that I've changed the way that I look at online
Mhm.
because these are intimate spaces that I'm creating but I'm doing it because I connect with you before we were ever on a podcast. I want to know more about you. I research, I put this together. It's not just, hey, let's get on and just have a conversation. No, I want to think about this. I want to produce the best content that I can, but I also want to honor the person that I'm with. So that's
Mhm.
why I created everything the way that I created it, but it was based off of that, like, not perfectionism, but I just wanted it to be the best work that I could based off of my background and what can I bring to the fore. Where did you see yourself in that area of being visible? Did that ever impact you as you started your own journey, or did you ever bump up against it? Like any fears of being seen or
Mm.
shifting or like learning in public.
Mm.
That used to scare the shit out of me. It was like learning in public was
Yeah.
like, no, I want to learn over here so I can come do that. But I thought that that was the way it was. But like, really, that's just performing.
Yeah, that's right.
You have you have to know how to skate and
Yeah.
dance while the thing's happening. We
Yep.
don't have that luxury anymore.
That's
And
right.
so that's why I find powerful about your conversation. I'm just wondering, like, did you have any spaces in there where that came up with you about being seen?
I love the question. Um, and I would love to tell you, no, I'm totally fine learning in public. But listen, I just don't think that would be totally honest. Because I think there's tension there, right? When we show up, especially if it's in a client facing space, we want to be at our best. Nobody loves falling down, skinning their knees. But the flip side of that is actually something that I teach leaders in leadership development work, which is there is such power in being vulnerable and just being human. And the connect because being learning and developing and growing is this universal human experience. There is actually tremendous connection when you let your walls down and you allow yourself to be vulnerable. You admit either this is the first time I've done this. I don't entirely know what I'm doing, or I gave it a try and it didn't turn out exactly the way I wanted it to, or hey, that wasn't great. Can I try that again? My experience is that 99% of people are incredibly gracious. Oh, yes, absolutely. They'll give you the time and the space and the opportunity to take another run at it or make it right. And then there's actually a connection that happens, and that relationship actually goes deeper. And so there is real power in that humility, in the vulnerability of just admitting that we are all human, we're all growing, we're all learning, even when you are showing up as the business owner, the consultant, the one who's supposed to have all the answers. And it's incredibly freeing to leave that behind. So
Yeah.
I think through my whole career, I've been working on that. And this has just been the next step in leaving that behind.
Yeah. And yeah, I'm done with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just not helpful.
I don't want to be around anybody that's performing. I can smell it,
Right.
like, I can see it. And it's not like a negative thing at all. It's just like I know I relate so much to where that came from and that perfection and wanting to be right. I also understand my upbringing and where that came from. And it's all okay to have that played out in my life, ever how it played out. But like today, moving forward, it's just not authentic. And I don't want to be anything except for me and have that authenticity. If that authenticity is not enough, and we ain't a match. So I think it's okay. Like, cause that's where I want to give myself some grace. I never, I spent 55 years not doing that,
Right.
you know?
Right. And it's interesting because when I look back on my upbringing, I actually didn't feel that pressure, I'm honestly not entirely sure where it came from, other than I would put it on myself. Like I wanted to show up and, have hit that high mark every single time. And that can serve you well to a point,
Good point.
to a point. But
Then it chokes you to
eventually,
death.
it absolutely. And what I have found is once I have shed that, I'm still going to hold a high bar of excellence, but I have let go of performance, and that's
Yeah,
actually made me better.
I agree with you. Yeah, it is something different to have to be that way. Oh no, I get to be that way
Right.
because I want it to be this level. And it's not
Right.
because I have to have it this level or I'll die. If I want it to be this way because I can. And I've lived enough to have this experience to express these ideas and the things I thought I was crazy about what I used to like when I would see things in the world that were just so unjust and like, why are we doing this way? You know, Like, why do we put money in front of everything? Like, why are these, like, when I ask these questions, and why do we value competition so much? Like, where did that come from? Why is
Mhm.
it that way? Why isn't it this way? Like,
Mhm.
when you dive into all of those things, what you really don't do until it is you own it and you realize that I am this, I'm also taking out the trash.
Yeah. Right. And if you think back, like tying it back to that conversation we had about that structured reflection and emotions versus reality, my emotions almost every time are probably I didn't meet my own standard. I didn't
Yeah.
think I was meeting
Yeah.
my own standard until, and then oh, wait, no. It just looked a little bit different this week than maybe I thought it was going to on Monday. And so just giving yourself that kind of permission to experience the world a little bit differently than you have before.
I love this conversation. I'm getting ready to, this will be on season 8. But my next season, I'm really focusing more about the C-suite folks that are stepping into this. I'd love to follow up this conversation and for in season 9, if you were open to it.
Yeah, that'd
We
be
can talk
great.
about it later, but to kind of track how you evolve because you're at the 9-month stage, where you're going to be at in a year, like how are things, like it's so important, I think, to chronicle and document these experiences because this is one of the biggest shifts we've ever had as humanity. But I know we're going to find a new way to commerce with each other, to
Mm,
figure out these spaces. So I would love that. It's just a perfect alignment if
I
you'd
would
be
love
up for
that.
that.
Yeah, thank
Okay,
you.
awesome. We'll do that. But as we close out today, land the plane on this pod. Are you ready for your closing question?
I'm ready.
Okay, so where in your life are you still waiting for some level of external validation to confirm who you already are? Is there any space left?
We are all always on a journey. There is no I've arrived. And so don't know that I would frame internal validation versus external validation as needing to be pitted against each other like a binary thing, but rather a point of emphasis. So, where am I getting more of my validation? What is driving me? Think I am just on that continuum of where I maybe 9 months ago stepping out of 3 decades of corporate environments was more reliant on that external validation than I am today. But I don't think any of us will ever be completely free of that. And I think that's okay. I think that's good because to be wholly dependent on yourself for validation has its own set of pitfalls. So I think I'm not sure the goal is to be all the way over on the other extreme end of the spectrum either, but rather finding that healthy balance in the middle. And so I think I'm finding, at least for where I am right now, a really healthy balance of both internal and external validation.
Thank you. I would have never thought of that being both. Like it was binary. So thank you for bringing that to my attention. I appreciate that. I'm going to take that. I do am fascinated by, I on the daily get emails from people about they've listened to a certain pod or, how they've been affected by something or, hey, you should talk to my friend. He's would be really great. Like all of those things, it's great, but I don't place, it doesn't have as much charge as it used to.
Mm.
Like I was honest, it's almost like I've been paying more attention to my own internal compass than that. So when you said that, I was like, it's okay to take that in too. So thank you for
Yeah,
bringing that to, yeah,
yeah,
it is okay with both. Balance. I'm a
that's
Libra.
right.
Yes. Balance is perfect. Yes.
Excellent. That's right.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed today. This is awesome. I love
Thank you.
talking about these spaces that we don't normally get to talk about. We
Mhm.
just sort of plow through them, but I think it's so important that we take that time to stop and reflect. And P.S. I'm adding that into my week too. I've already thought about where I'm going to do it.
There you go.
So yes, put it in your damn calendar. So
That's right.
thank you. Thank you, Dr. Julie. I appreciate it.
Thank
Thank you guys for listening for this amazing conversation today. And just, I want to offer you that there's a quiet kind of leadership that doesn't get seen often. It's not in our titles, it's not in the teams that we work with. It's in the moments where no one is watching and you still get to choose how you show up. And maybe that's why this conversation is really pointing to having that conversation with yourself. Leadership isn't something that you're given, it's something that you actually become when there's nothing left to hold on to. It's yourself. And we're all going through a lot of those spaces. So maybe today is the day you begin a new conversation with yourself. Remember, there's no right way, just one conscious choice at a time. And we will all see you on the next one. Bye, everyone.